Hello everyone, Michael Bretti here from Bretti Musical Instruments. If you've got an eye in particular for very fine woods, you'll probably immediately notice from the insanely figured woods used in the ocarinas behind me that this is going to be a very special unveiling video. So without further ado, I'm pleased to give a first look and listen to batch number 6 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas from Bretti Musical Instruments, and the second completed custom ocarina batch that I have done so far. So over the course of this video, I'm going to be diving into the background and the development of these ocarinas and how they've evolved, especially with the back and forth and the communications with the customer, as well as diving into the wood selection, giving a really close-up look and background to all the woods used on the ocarinas, as well as sound samples of each and a full playing demonstration, playing through a whole song at the end. So as a really brief background before I dive further into these ocarinas, if you've seen prior videos, you may have seen, I believe back in April, I released a unveiling video for a very special custom B3 bass shun that I made, which was made from figured rambutan, curly maple, and wenge. In that video, I had actually mentioned that that instrument was part of a matching set, a matching shun and ocarina set, and that I'd be unveiling the ocarina at a later date. So this is in fact the matching ocarina to that shun. That shun has already been delivered to the customer. They're very happy with it, and they're also excited for their matching ocarina. And I'm also excited to see, what music the customer plays with both of these absolutely fantastic instruments. As a really brief background, I won't go as much detail into it as I go really heavily in depth in that shun unveiling, and I'll post a link to that in the details below as well for reference. But earlier in the year, I believe back in January, the customer had reached out to me. They had seen my some of my work that I posted on the Ocarina Reddit for my shun, and in particular, they really loved the rambutan shun set that I made for myself, and they asked if they could have a custom bass rambutan shun for themselves. So I told them, absolutely, we could definitely do that. I love rambutan. It's kind of a rare wood to see, but it really has really beautiful qualities for these types of instruments and just for woodworking in general. So I went down the whole process of designing out that instrument for them. So I'd given them a whole bunch of different options for various rambutan boards to select from. They selected their favorite one. Because the rambutan boards I get are a little bit on the thinner side for both shun and ocarinas, they have to be laminated up with a couple of layers of thin woods to bring it up to thickness to give me the proper tuning for the size that I make for these instruments. So we went very back and forth heavily on that selection. Initially, it was going to be Oblivion rosewood and Catalox lamination paired with the rambutan. When I had got those woods in, I was really disappointed with the colors and the overall match and aesthetic. So we went back and forth with the customer in trying to figure out what would work best. And we ended up settling on really clean look with maple and wenge. I use wenge extensively for lots of laminations for my ocarinas. I think it pairs well with everything. And it was actually the customer's suggestion to have the maple bands sandwiching the wenge. So we'd have a white, black, white banding between the layers of the rambutan for the shun, which I think ended up coming out absolutely beautiful. It gave it a really sophisticated, really elegant look. So in the process of laying out the shun on the rambutan board, trying to kind of figure out where I wanted the grain to lay along the instrument and kind of planning the usage of the wood for the instrument, It turned out that I had a lot of wood left over, so I told the customer, I'm going to make your shoon out of this particular selection on the board. I think it gives it the best look and match for the shoon with how I'm laying out the grain. But I have enough wood left over to make a couple of ocarinas, and I'm probably planning on making several larger tenors because, in particular, I love larger, deeper ocarinas myself, not only for the tone and the feel of the instrument, but also if you're making ocarinas out of figured wood, it's my philosophy that for certain woods, you got to just show off more of that beauty in the grain with a larger instrument. So I had developed out the E4 tenor size at that time, and I planned on making a couple of ocarinas from the remaining wood. And the customer was like, that sounds really cool. And if you're going to be doing that, could you maybe make an ocarina that matches my shoon? And I told them, absolutely, we could definitely do that. And I'd been wanting to do a matching shoon and ocarina set for quite a while, but I just really hadn't had the opportunity to dive into that. So this was a really kind of cool opportunity to make a fully matching custom instrument set across multiple instruments. So that core wood theme of the rambutan, the curly maple, and the wenge served as the foundation for these ocarinas as well. And I will be going into some of the other wood selections afterwards as we step through the ocarinas. So kind of diving right into the ocarinas, there's two ocarinas in this set. There's serial numbers 31 and 32. So first, looking at number 31, we'll give a look at the rambutan and the maple wenge laminations, and then I'll get into the mouthpiece and the top wood. So again, the really foundation, the core of this instrument is the rambutan. Rambutan, I've said many times, is one of my absolutely favorite woods now for musical instrument building. Especially for ocarinas and shoon. It has a beautiful color. It's super heavy, super hard, really dense, really unusual, unique wood that's quite rare to see. But the colors and the finish and everything is absolutely gorgeous on these instruments. So kind of getting right in, we can see the figured rambutan used for the base of the body for this ocarina. So it's an absolutely it's an amazing wood. It takes such an amazing polish. It's a heavy, hard, very durable wood. I find it's even for a very dense, hard tropical wood, it's very stable, and it doesn't seem to be as prone to cracking as something like bloodwood, for example. So this is a really fantastic wood. Again, really rare to see. You don't typically see this, and there really isn't any data on rambutan wood. And if you don't know, rambutan is another word for lychee. So this is actually the wood from the lychee fruit tree, which is kind of neat. So you can see the beautiful curl striations running across the body, and then you have some beautiful dark veining running through the grain vertically through the instrument. Now, this board had a number of natural checks and inclusions in the wood. That's pretty common for some species, and I found that is quite common for rambutan. I personally love designing instruments around natural checks and inclusions. I think it adds a lot of natural character and beauty to the instrument, and really highlights just the natural beauty and uniqueness of wood in general. I know for a lot of different woods, you want, for a lot of different instruments, you want the woods used to be, absolutely flawless. Making an instrument with like a crack or a check in the wood would be considered blasphemous for certain instruments. But for instruments like these, it doesn't affect anything structurally, tone-wise, quality-wise. And I think, again, it adds a lot of really natural beauty. If you've seen a prior unveiling video for the Madrone burl, alto A4 I shipped out to Japan back at I believe, the beginning of this month, beginning of May. That was based around a lot of natural checks and inclusions in the Madrone burl. So I think that really highlights the incredible beauty and the naturalness of the wood. So you can see there's for this particular piece, there's a check here, there's a little check here. On the side, there's a tiny little dimple of a check and a little dimple on the top. I think that all adds kind of character to the instrument. Doesn't affect anything. One thing I do have to be careful, especially designing the finger holes for any type of instrument, shun or ocarina, is to make sure that the natural checks don't fall anywhere, near or running across or through these finger holes. Just to make sure that when I'm drilling, I don't cause any further cracking or chipping out around those features. So these pieces were designed with that in mind. I laid the instrument out in a way that you have those checks, but they don't interfere with the sound holes at all. So again, you have the really beautiful rust color, the iridescence of the wood, absolutely gorgeous. This is a really, really cool body for an ocarina, quite rare, I would say, as well. Moving on, we mentioned the maple and wenge laminations. So for this ocarina, because of the thickness of the wood, I used a triple lamination. So it's the same lamination as the shun, whereas the shun you have the rambutan body, you have the maple, wenge maple, and then the rambutan for the other side. So it's two halves joined together. For this, we decided to keep the theme of that base wood selection, to use that in the same manner between the body and the fingerboard. So there's a nice lightly curly maple. It's a little bit hard to see here with the lighting, but there's a little bit of iridescence in the grain. Again, we had gone back and forth a number of different woods in the process for the laminations. I wasn't happy with them, and coming up with the wenge and the maple, I think, was a really good selection. I had initially proposed a wenge maple wenge, and the customer asked, maybe to have the white sandwiching the black to really make that black pop. And I think that was a fantastic suggestion. And again, it's one of those really fun things about custom instruments in general, is that collaboration with the customer and seeing new perspectives on woods and combinations and builds. So I think that turned out really nice. And for this, again, that double white layer with the black layer really brings out the crispness and that contrast. So you can see the lamination wraps all the way around. It gives it a really nice, defined, clean look. Then we get to, I think, the really wow factor of this ocarina, and that is the absolutely just insane figured wood for the top. Give a little bit of a close-up and a look of that figure. This is quilted sapele. This is like master grade quilted sapele. This looks like fire. I told the customer when I was in the final polishing stages, I was like, holy crap, this wood looks like fire. And even when I got the raw wood stock and I sent pictures to the customer, we were just both like, holy crap. No finish on it at all. And you could see just the insane figure in the wood. So when I was discussing the wood design and going over the design for the ocarina with the customer, kind of asked, we have the rambutan, we have the maple, we have the wenge now, is there a wood in particular you would like for the top? And the customer said it'd be really cool to pair the colors of the rambutan with something like mahogany, which I thought was a really cool idea. So I was browsing around, I was searching for different options for mahogany, and I wanted to get a figured mahogany to match the figured body of the rambutan. And in my searches, I'd also come across some really amazing figured sapele. And sapele, it's not a mahogany, but it's often used as a substitute for mahogany because it has very similar working properties, physical properties, and both have just absolutely insane figure. You can get unbelievable figure from mahogany and sapele. And I reached out to the customer and I was like, along the lines of mahogany, if you don't mind something very similar to that, I would recommend maybe checking out some of these samples of sapele. Very similar in color, very similar in properties to mahogany. But the pieces of sapele that I had found, that I stumbled across, were just insane. The quilting is just absolutely ridiculous. This is probably the most figured wood I have ever worked with for an instrument build. And I've been building instruments on the side for myself for a long time. And this is by far the most figured, the most insane ocarina I have built yet. I've hinted to that before in prior videos, but it just doesn't do it justice until you really see it in person. So the customer was really excited. I had a few different options I had found some quilted mahogany, some quilted sapele. The customer picked this board, which I had also kind of recommended. I was like, hey, if you want, really next level, top tier, ridiculous woods for an insane custom ocarina build, maybe check this one out. It's going to be more expensive. This was a very expensive wood to acquire, especially for an ocarina. But I mean, the results just stand out for itself. It's masterpiece level figuring in the wood. And part of my job as an instrument maker is to take the natural beauty of the wood and work it into the instrument so that it shines the best. So, all the credit and the beauty and stuff really goes into Mother Nature for creating just this insane figuring in the wood. And my job is just to make it into a functional instrument and polish it out so you can see that beauty, that hidden beauty a little bit more. So this is an unbelievable wood. I know there's sapele ocarinas out there. It is a bit of a common wood, I would say. But one of the things about sapele is there's just absolutely insane, intense levels of figure, like this quilting, that I haven't really seen ever tapped into for wooden ocarinas before. And I've mentioned this a lot talking with people about ocarinas and wood ocarinas in general, is that there's a lot of wood ocarinas out there. There's a bunch of really well-known makers, but no one's really tapped into just the exquisite beauty of insanely figured woods that you can get. And even talking with a customer, showing him the woods, he had no idea that figure like this really even existed for like a wood like this. And quilting in sapele, quilting in mahogany, quilting in maple, there are top tier, world famous woods for this kind of quilting figure. Just absolutely stunning. And when used in musical instruments, it really brings that instrument just to a whole new aesthetic level. If you like figured woods like this. So again, just really, I keep saying it, I keep going over and over again, I'm beating a dead horse here, but this is a really absolutely beautiful wood. Really exciting to see this type of wood being used for ocarinas. Finally, we have the mouthpiece selection. So if you've seen my prior unveiling video for the Alto A4 Madrone Burl ocarina, you'll probably notice that this is also same wood. So this wood was cut from the same block of curly aged old growth redwood. In planning the ocarinas, I had mentioned to the customer, like I did with the prior customer, by the way, for very specialty builds, for custom builds, I do offer the option to upgrade the standard cedar mouthpiece to figured redwood. It's more expensive, but I would say that the color of the redwood, the figure of the redwood, especially if you have an incredibly figured ocarina build already with, the back and the front with beautiful figured woods, you really have to go with a redwood mouthpiece because just the deeper, rich color of the redwood ties in beautifully with the woods. That beautiful iridescence in the grain pairs in nicely. And I told the customer, give it a thought. You don't have to decide now, and I don't want to pressure you into it because it is a little bit more cost for the instrument. But again, if you're getting top tier woods for the instrument, I would highly recommend just going a little bit extra and getting that redwood because it's going to tie the entire instrument together as a whole. And I feel like I would say that in an ocarina like this, you have to get a redwood mouthpiece. Functionally, the redwood and the cedar for the terms of moisture stability and moisture control and everything are functionally equivalent. It's just the aesthetic. So they're both work functionally the same, both beautiful mouthpieces, but the redwood really takes it to a new level. And the customer agreed. They said, let's go for it. Let's put that redwood mouthpiece on. And I really think the results go really nicely with this ocarina. So you have some dark banding in this redwood piece that kind of matches that dark banding of the rambutan. So everything in the instrument is really carefully thought out. I like a lot of what I like to do with these instruments is for the aesthetics of the instrument, really focus on the grain of the wood, the structure of the grain, the figure of the wood, and make a really cohesive, beautiful instrument where all the elements tie together. So from the coloration of the mouthpiece and the coloration of the body and the top and the contrasting bands and everything, even in the figure, like I said, with the striping here, the striping in the redwood, in the redwood, the figure and the curl, all tying it together to create not only a beautiful sounding instrument, but a very cohesive, beautiful piece of art that you can enjoy just looking at, just when you're not playing it as well. So that kind of is the full background and kind of my rant on the woods. And as you've probably seen in prior videos, I'm a huge wood nut. I get really excited about figured woods, and I get really into the details of various woods. And I take a lot of time and pride in designing the instruments and the wood selection and working with the customers in that aspect. So now that we've kind of covered the woods of the build and looking at number 31, let's give it a listen. So you heard a sound sample of number 32 at the beginning for the intro theme. So now I'm going to just play a number 31. I'm going to give a scale up and down so you can get the feel of the full range of the instrument. So here is what number 31 sounds like going up and down the scale. So incredibly beautiful, incredibly smooth tone. These are really smooth playing ocarinas and tenors in general, I find that the tenor size, the E4 right now is currently my favorite out of all the sizes that I've done. I have the E4, the F4, G4, the A4. So 2 altos, 2 tenors, and the E4 is definitely my favorite size. Not only from the size, you get to enjoy the beauty of the wood a lot more, but just from the physical size of the instrument and just the tone and the smoothness and playing of the ocarina. So this ocarina has a really smooth, sweet tone, beautiful clarity of the notes at the top. Like all of my ocarinas, these are 11-hole models. So you do have the split hole here for the first accidental, and then there's a sub hole next to the third finger on the right-hand side for getting that sub hole. So these are a extended 19-note span, which if you've seen for especially inline ocarinas, and I've mentioned this before, as far as I'm aware, my inline ocarinas have the largest note span of any inline ocarina that I'm aware of. They span the full 19 notes. They are voiced and tuned to play with the same fingering as a typical transverse ocarina. So you have the same finger hole pattern and range as an 11-hole transverse ocarina, except in a inline package. And what I found, and I've mentioned this before, is that with inline ocarinas, while they are physically easier to make the shape and to do production faster in, prototype faster in, they are much, much less forgiving when it comes to voicing and extending that range. Typically, you'll find inline ocarinas are pretty limited. They're usually either used for, you see a lot of harmony type ocarinas, you see a lot of kind of 1 octave or maybe pentatonic ocarinas, really limited range. Absolutely nothing wrong at all with those ocarinas. There's no right or wrong for ocarinas, all really excellent instruments, but nothing that's really pushed the range to the level of transverse ocarinas. I think that's one thing that's really held inline ocarinas back, and they've really, kind of suffered from, is not having that full capability of transverse ocarinas. So these ocarinas are fully capable of single chamber transverse ocarina range. And the nice thing is you still have really beautiful clarity at the top. These are lower pressure. Typically, the larger the instrument, kind of the lower the breath pressure. So these do have a kind of a low breath pressure curve at the bottom and then kind of rise up gently at the top. I find it's a pretty even, intuitive breath pressure. And really for a given size of ocarina, because voicing is so demanding and getting that last 19th note, going for a single octave inline is super easy, takes almost no effort. Getting 16 notes is also really easy. Getting 18 notes is more of a challenge, but it's still doable. But getting that 19th note is what pushes you to the edge. It is so, so difficult to balance the entire range, getting that 19th note, getting that clarity, getting the beauty in the tone, and everything to come together, controlling the second harmonic dynamics that happen in inline ocarinas. It's a really bizarre phenomenon that can occur, that can be overpowering in inline ocarinas when you're pushing that 18th, 19th note range. And voicing that out is what takes about probably 90% of the entire crafting time for these ocarinas. These ocarinas are probably on the order of a 2 to 3 month build time. Sometimes even longer, depending on how the ocarina voicing process is going. So it's a tremendous amount of work to get them voiced to a level that I feel is satisfactory for these instruments and really making it as a quality high-end woodwind. So the breath pressure is a little bit lower on the lower side for these ocarinas, but again, it's kind of a tenor range. You can push the higher range a little bit more. So these are actually a little bit more dynamic, especially when you're going up the scale. So it's not like a flat, very even breath curve. You do have a naturally rising curve up, which I think adds a little bit of extra comfort and expressiveness to the ocarina without having too much, having it being too flat or having it being too much disparity between the low and the top side. So again, really beautiful, warm tone. It has a really unique texture to it. It's not textured, like super textured, super reedy. Typically, you see inline ocarinas with a kind of rectangular sound hole. I go with the teardrop type sound hole because the inline ocarina, and especially for the very fine, narrow windway and the alignment that I have inside, already adds a little bit of extra texture to the ocarina. And I find that having that teardrop voicing with the natural texture of the inline and the tighter windway gives it kind of a unique balance. It's a woody type texture and tone because it's a wooden ocarina, but kind of the dynamics and tone of it is a little bit unique. Again, it's not super pure like a typical Asian style transverse, for example, but it's not as reedy as a typical rectangular hole inline. There's that kind of a unique balance to it. It's almost, inlines, I would say, are a different experience. If you haven't played them a lot, they are going to have a different feel to them compared to transverse. I find that transverse definitely have a more kind of that classic hollow type resonant ocarina tone. Whereas inlines, especially with how I voice them, they are more flute-like. Ocarinas are obviously a flute, but what I mean is more kind of like recorder or side blown or perhaps even end blown style flute, as opposed to like a really hollow resonant vessel flute type feel. So it's definitely a different dynamic, different feel. It's not going to be for everyone, but it does add some uniqueness to the ocarinas for people who are looking to expand their collection. So now getting into the second ocarina of the batch. This is number 32. So I'll just go over the woods really quickly and then give another sound demonstration. So again, you have the beautiful rust-colored curly rambutan. So you have some really nice iridescence in the grain. What's kind of neat with the difference between these two instruments is where the first one had some checks and inclusion kind of on the flat face of the back. This one is very clean on the flat face, no checks or inclusions. However, the sides here had some hidden checks. So when I was grinding out, when I was cutting it and shaping it, I found these natural checks in the side. So there's one on that side and there's one on that side. So it doesn't affect anything with the instrument at all, just purely aesthetic. And it's kind of nice that each one has its own unique personality with just the different woods. The other one has a little bit darker veining and color to it with the checks in the back. This one has a little bit lighter veining and color to it with the checks on the side. So kind of comparing the two, you can see both very beautiful figured woods, a little bit different aesthetic, both cut from the same exact board, but they share the same common ancestry of the wood, but each has their own really unique figuring and kind of feel to it. So again, we have the curly maple and wenge banding that goes around the body of the ocarina to pair nicely as a kind of a nice contrasting cut between the top and the bottom. And then again, you have the absolutely insane rippling fire-like grain of this master grade quilted sapele. Just absolutely insane. And just you can see just moving it in the light, just the way the sapele just glows. It's almost dizzying to see it moving in the light. It's just really, really something else. It's just, again, I have more of this sapele. I'm saving it for some other really special builds. I can get more quilted sapele for other ocarinas out there. So this is getting to, like, really top tier, figure for wooden ocarinas for especially for what I offer. So really, really incredible look to the overall ocarina. Then you have the redwood mouthpiece. So the redwood on this one is cut from the same board, but again, a little bit different figure. This one actually kind of, you have a little bit of the iridescence in the grain, but this one also has a little bit more pronounced, darker striping in it. So you can see kind of some darker stripes in the grain of the wood. So a little bit darker kind of modeling in the grain, which I think kind of adds, again, a nice contrast and character between the two of these instruments. So giving now a sound sample of number 32, I'll play up and down the full scale to give you an idea of what this one sounds like. So, like number 31, number 32 has absolutely beautiful, crystal clear tone across the range, really warm, mellow lows, really clean, sweet high end. For every ocarina batch, I try to match the ocarinas as much as I can in terms of voicing and dynamics. Sometimes batches are super, super matched. Other times, just because there's variations with each handmade ocarina, there's more differences. They all play really beautifully, but they have maybe a little bit different back pressure, a little bit different texture, or crispness along somewhere in the range. These two are extremely well matched, I would say, in terms of the breath curve and the breath pressure. They are very, very close. I would say number 32 is slightly different in the sense that the low end is a little bit more restrained, but the high end has a little bit more texture to the tone. So it might be hard to hear the difference in the recording and hearing it online, but if you play them in real life and you play them enough to capture the nuances between them, you will notice a very subtle difference. Again, the breath pressure, the back pressure, the breath curve for both of these is extremely well matched. They are on par with each other, the same. I would say that number 31, the low end is a little bit more open. It's a little bit stronger with a really clear tone across the range. Number 32, the low end is a little bit more reserved. I'd say a tiny bit less breath pressure in that regard. But the high end has a little bit of extra texture to it and a little bit more crispness. Neither one is airy at all. They play really clearly, really cleanly. Just really subtle difference between the low and the high end. I think both are really amazing instruments. So it really depends if you just kind of the individual feel and what you as the customer, what they end up selecting. But between the two instruments, aesthetically, they're both absolutely gorgeous. Tonally, they're both absolutely gorgeous, but it's just a tiny, subtle difference in the nuance between the ocarinas. And again, this is part of why I do these unveiling videos. They are very long videos. They can run on for, half an hour. It's long. I don't necessarily expect everyone to, just sit through the whole thing. I kind of ramble on a lot, especially about the woods and some of the other aspects of making the ocarinas. But I do like to emphasize the individual character of each ocarina. And I think that's one unique thing that as a maker I offer for ocarinas that really isn't done in the ocarina field, is going over every single ocarina that I make within every batch and explaining these subtle nuances between each ocarina to kind of give a feel that, they're not mass produced. They're all individually made, individually handcrafted. I'm human. I do use, drill press and other tools to make things, very accurately as I can, but there's always going to be some subtle differences in voicing these instruments, and every single woodwind is going to have its own unique character, its own unique quirks, and its own unique charm. And that's a lot of what I try to offer people with these ocarina batches, is the chance to explore some of these nuances between different ocarinas. And as the maker, I know my instruments better than anyone. I know everything about the nuances, and I think it's best to inform potential customers as much as possible about all the aspects of the instruments, so they can make a really informed decision, because these are very expensive ocarinas. Ocarinas are pretty typically cheap. Wooden ocarinas tend to be a little bit more. These ocarinas are on the more expensive side. But in that, I put a lot of emphasis on the quality of the material, on the whole build process, and especially the voicing, and then working with customers in giving them as much information as possible so they know everything about these ocarinas going into them. So that kind of wraps up this overview for this custom batch. Now, to give a example of these ocarinas in a more musical context, I'm going to play a short rendition of Down by the Salley Gardens on this ocarina, so you can kind of hear how it sounds in a full song. So please enjoy this rendition. So that wraps up this video unveiling for batch number 6 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas from Bretti Musical Instruments. Again, this was a custom ocarina batch unveiling for a matching ocarina and shun set made from curly rambutan, curly maple, wenge, master grade, quilted sapele, and figured old growth redwood. These are serial numbers 31 and 32. And I'm really excited to finally be able to deliver this ocarina to the customer who already has their custom shun. Both the shun and this ocarina was a really big journey. A lot of back and forth, a lot of you know, awesome collaboration and getting to know the customer, and working with them to create a really exquisite ocarina that I hope will be a focal point of their collection. And I'm really excited to see and hear what music they end up playing with this ocarina. Now, there are two ocarinas in this batch. The way that the custom ocarina builds works is that after I release the batch, the customer gets to choose their favorite of the ocarinas in the batch. So from this batch, since there are two, they'll have the selection of two ocarinas after reviewing all the aesthetics and the tones and the subtle nuances between each of them, kind of figuring out which one is right for them. Typically, after the batches are released and customer selects, I make the other ocarina for sale. However, in this case, because I actually don't have an opportunity to make ocarinas for myself, I don't have the time really between standard batches and custom batches to really create an ocarina for my own collection. So everything that I have made so far has been offered for sale. I might have held on to one or two ocarinas here and there from certain batches, kind of as reference points for that size, just to make sure I can keep consistency moving forward before releasing that ocarina. And for June, I'm going to have a really big unveiling marathon that's going to be really exciting. So there's going to be tons of ocarinas coming out. Just about everything is going to be up for sale, which means I don't actually have any ocarinas for my own collection. And it's always kind of hard sending these ocarinas out. It's always bittersweet because I'm really excited for the customer, and these were ultimately made for the customer. But at the same time, as a maker, you get really attached to it with all the wood selection and the voicing and discovering the personality of each instrument. And like I said, I don't really have any for my own collection for me to enjoy myself. And as much, as a small maker, especially at this stage, getting into the ocarina game, I really would benefit tremendously from more sales and selling, both ocarinas. I know they would go to absolutely fantastic homes. For this particular set, I am actually going to keep one of these ocarinas for myself, for my own collection. So whichever one the customer decides not to keep, I'm going to be, keeping that for myself. Again, rambutan is one of my favorite woods, so this build has a little bit of extra special meaning to me, especially since I have my own rambutan shun set. I absolutely love the combination of the woods, from the white and black striping to the rambutan to the just, again, insane master grade quilted sapele. Obviously, I really love the redwood mouthpiece and everything too. It would be a nice starting point for my own collection. So every once in a while, when I make batches, especially out of extremely rare or specialty woods, I'm probably going to hold on to one from my own collection, just because it's a nice opportunity for me to kind of build up my collection of woods that I really enjoy working with, and have had the chance to see evolve from a pile of woods to a fully functioning instrument. So for this particular batch, again, while there are two ocarinas and the customer is going to get first dibs on one of them, I am going to keep the other one for myself, so I can play around with ocarina more on my free time. Especially also since I love the E4 size. This is my absolute favorite size. So part of me has been excited to unveil this build, not only for the customer, so they have a chance to add this really incredible ocarina that they've been waiting months for to their collection, but also for myself, not only as a ocarina maker, but as someone who really enjoys the ocarina and wooden ocarinas. as a chance to, it sounds weird, but own one of my own ocarinas for myself, as opposed to kind of releasing them all out into the world. So this is one of those cases where it's not going to be a goodbye, but it's going to be kind of a hello in this case. And in addition to my own set, which I'm going to build out over time with all the different sizes and shapes of woods that I've come to really enjoy. So with that, I want to thank you for sticking through the video if you have, and I hope you've enjoyed learning about this ocarina and some of the work and thoughts that goes into a custom build like this. If you would like to reach out and collaborate on a special custom build, something like this, something simpler, something even more crazy, with even more figured woods, feel free to reach out in my contact information in the info and description below, as well as various social media I'm on. You can find me on the Bretti Musical Instruments Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as I post pretty regularly in the Ocarina Reddit, and as well as some of the other Ocarina Facebook communities, and the Global Ocarina Community Discord channel. So thanks again for watching, and for the customer, the soon-to-be owner of one of these ocarinas, I hope you also enjoyed this journey as much as I have, and I've really enjoyed getting a chance to make a special set for this, and I hope you enjoy playing your new ocarina. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.